So yeah, we're now ready to start the next run. Kuro, you're up.
Alright, I will just assume I'm live now. So, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Kuro, and this is Flushed Away, a licensed game based on the animated film of the same name in 2006. I am joined by a fellow runner, and you may have seen him during the Smash tournament, Newts, who will be helping with commentary.
Hello, ladies and laddies. I'm Newts. Flushed Away is about the pampered society mouse named Roddy who gets flushed down the toilet, and in his journey to get back up top to his home in Kensington, he encounters quite a bit of trouble, and so he has to overcome some of his character weaknesses in order to get back to his home. So the game includes a lot of platforming, stealth, and some other shenanigans. And so it's going to be quite a fun time.
Yeah, this is gonna be, licensed games typically have a stigma, especially in, like, the speedrun community, but, this one's special, and, we're gonna show you why. So we'll go ahead and start. So I will do a 3, 2, 1, go countdown, and I will start the game on go. So, without further ado, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so before we are eponymously flushed away, we begin in Kensington Apartment, home to Roddy St. James and his two butlers who were cut from the movie, Gilbert and Sullivan. This level is split up into 3 sections: the living room, the pantry, and the kitchen, with the level ending at the sink. The living room, while it looks like a big open area, is littered with kill planes, so we are pretty much forced to go on the intended path, with a few exceptions.
Yes, so the first skip is actually quite simple, but it is kind of precise. So in order to skip the living room, we have to get to the other side of this couch. We jump from the couch arm to the rope, then to the lamp, balance on the lamp carefully, and then jump onto this zipline stick that takes us right down to the pantry. This skips the combat tutorial on the table as well as the 2D platforming section on the bookshelves. The pantry isn't too special. There isn't much going on. There are a few different shenanigans, but the most important thing to note is the rope climbing. Instead of just climbing up, we jump on and off. That is the fastest way to do it, and that takes us to the kitchen, where Kuro will be attempting kitchen skip. In order to do so, he uses an attack jump, which is a frame-perfect maneuver where he becomes grounded for 1 frame out of his attack animation, and thus can double jump again. Then he climbs up to the horizontal rope, hope that he doesn't get hit, and then... Aw, man, didn't work.
Yeah, so not only do you need good execution with the frame perfect attack jump, you also need good luck. These North guns, as they're called, they calculate where you're going to be and apply a random value. So if you're approaching them, it is very likely you get hit. So kitchen skip is one of the hardest tricks in the game, just for that reason. So I took the walk of shame, so I'm getting back to that rope I was on, and I will drop down into the sink. I couldn't have gone to the sink initially because the load zone wasn't there to end.
Alrighty, so that ends Kensington Apartment. And so we move on to entering the hub world, Retropolis, specifically Piccadilly Square, where we will be meeting Socket Set first. We take some weird movement to skip a cutscene where Socket Set is talking to a woman, and then we... Oh, I didn't get it. Oh, sadness.
Yeah, I missed
Oh
it.
well. So, what Roddy is doing is he is asking Socket Set for help to get back up top, but Socket Set wants some help with a bit of fly collecting first for one of his clients. And so that is what the second level, A Jar of Flies, is all about. And this level starts off with another quite difficult skip, where we have to jump under an invisible wall, land on the edge of that pillar that has a crack on it that would otherwise take us to the rest of the level, and then we jump into the pipe opening. This skips about 4 minutes of gameplay, or 5, and it's quite precise because you need to use coyote time, or the amount of time that you can be grounded in the air before you fall. And so it's a bit difficult. We have a setup for it, or actually quite a few setups for it, but yeah, it's quite difficult because, especially when you get to the edge of that pillar platform, you have to be very precise, or else the invisible wall will suck you in and then it won't allow you to jump anymore. So once the pillar cracks, then we have to restart the level.
Yeah, I'm struggling a bit here. It's it's a pretty precise thing. This is one of the major roadblocks for new runners.
Yeah, but luckily, lately we've introduced a new category called No Major Skips, where we actually go into the level, and that's its own little can of worms with all the different things that you can do in that category, but maybe that will be for another time.
Yeah, so there I went too far into the pipe and got caught in the invisible wall.
Yeah, and even if he were to try to get out of there, it blocks you in after you enter it from all sides, and it disables your ability to jump as soon as you go in there. But Kuro gets it, and now we continue on to the rest of the level.
Yeah, so when I first started running this game, that trick, getting it for the first time, it took me 3 hours straight, just attempts. So that's rough. So this level is a big loop. So right now we're going through the level in reverse. This is the fly room, but you may notice that there are no flies. We have to activate them. So I need to go into the elevator that we would normally come up on. Go very carefully. And this will spawn the flies. So once we collect the flies, we will exit the same way we came in. You may have noticed when I fell in the elevator, I took fall damage. If I had fallen for even a frame longer, that would have killed me. So fall damage is extremely lethal in this game. There are ways to mitigate fall damage. As you've seen, we have the frame perfect attack jump trick, because that resets our vertical velocity when we jump. But we have another frame perfect trick called a death cancel, which we'll see in the next level. What we won't see in the next level is Roddy St. James.
Yep, so as Kuro ends the level, we will begin explaining Into the Lair. So Roddy will talk to Socket Set and then, explain about how to get back up top. But then it cuts away to Rita, who is the second protagonist of the game, and her goal is to steal the ruby from the Toad, the main antagonist, so that she can pay off, or to sell it for enough money so that she can go on a trip through the drains of Europe. And so, we start off the level with a bit of odd movement just to get some optimization here. We go directly to the cutscene. It can be skipped, but it's a bit risky, and it's better to just have the checkpoint set there. So, yeah, Kuro navigates to the grapple here, and then he attempts the death cancel.
Yeah, so the frame perfect tricks I got first try, thankfully, both the attack jump and death cancel. So yeah, I would have died from fall damage, but the beginning of that animation makes you invulnerable. Now we are in the warehouse. So first we will go around this box. What we're doing is skipping something called the flood room, which is a large vertical room where you have to change the water levels. Instead, we can go out of bounds like so, and then grapple our way to safety, skipping the entire section, which is very nice. So we've mentioned grappling, and you've seen it already. So when Rita grapples, she will automatically descend. You can hold Y to hold her position, and press A to dismount. Another mechanic you'll see is something called instant grappling. So typically Rita has a startup animation when she tries to grapple, but if she's ever falling, that animation is skipped. So we try and do that as much as possible. Missed that jump there, it's a little tight. I was a bit afraid of the slug. But yeah, so whenever she's falling, she will do an instant grapple. We'll be using this a lot. So now we will be approaching the Steam and Gear sections, and you'll also see this game's amazing lighting, or rather lack thereof.
Yep, it's almost entirely blind in this first gear room. So this is the sewer treatment plant, and here we're just gonna take a bit of a straightforward path through this first room and wait for this cycle, which actually has lined up decently well for Kuro here. And so, yeah, now we enter this is entirely cycle-based for most of the rest of the level. The steam section here, we have to either wait for these blasts of steam, or we have to jump over them, depending on which one we're trying to jump over, as well as just, like, if they're quite hard to jump over, basically. And so we have to take that into account as we go through these next two steam sections. And that's quite straightforward, so I'll let Kuro take over for the next part, which is not too straightforward.
Yeah, so once we get past this Steam section, we will be coming up to the room before the Toad's bedroom. Oops. Yeah, so these things on the pipes, if you ever get inside of them, they will just instantly kill you for some reason. We don't entirely know what these are supposed to be, so in the chat, give it your best guess what these, like, pieces of bread are. But anyway, now that I'm avoiding them, is the room before the Toad's bedroom. So there's a cutscene I'll take here. You can skip it, but it's a bit risky. So we'll be taking an unorthodox shortcut using an unintended mechanic called a grapple jump. So as I was saying before with grappling, if you hold Y to hold your position and also hold a direction, you can mash A and you will be grounded for a little bit. This allows you to input a jump, allowing me to jump up onto here, avoiding having to walk around the perimeter. Saves like 40 seconds. And now we are in the Toad's bedroom, where we must tiptoe around, but we're not gonna use tiptoeing.
Yep, in fact, sidestepping is actually the faster way to move. It saves 3 to 4 seconds depending on your angling as well as optimization of the rhythm of sidestepping. This is a unique animation that is basically only useful for this room alone. And so after this room, we'll be getting to the actual real Ruby room, where we're going to be doing another grapple jump after grappling off of this pipe, and then we'll be dropping down, grappling these corgi statues after we drop down, and then grab the ruby. Then we have to avoid Spike and Whitey, the Toad's henchiest henchrats. And while they may seem scary, their actual detection hitboxes are quite small, but it is quite tempting to get into either of their loving embraces.
We wouldn't blame you. They're very welcoming. So anyways, now we are in the grind section, which is the final part of this level. What Rita is approaching is her boat, called the Jammy Dodger, which will be the star of the next level. Since it is a nautical vehicle and not a rodent like Roddy and Rita, it controls very differently than the rats. So the next level will be a tutorial. It'll teach us how to drive, jump, shoot, and all those things. Unfortunately, the boat is no Hydro Thunder, but it still has some things going for it. However, we will not be playing the next level very normally. I will be using a trick called the Flying Dutchman. I won't spoil what it accomplishes, but I'll explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So first, I will be setting a very specific checkpoint. So this game automatically sets up checkpoints when you pass certain parts of the levels. So what I want to do is go right up to the right wall and approach it very slowly. This is very important that I set this checkpoint, so slow down, and there, that's where the checkpoint is set. Now we need to get to that checkpoint. We need to die and get there. There's no way to deplete our health in this room, but another way that we can die on the boat is get stuck. So if we jump up here, oh no, I messed that up a bit. Newts will give me hell for that, for messing up right side, but
I'm telling you, left side is better.
Anyway, so doing this successfully this time. So if the game ever thinks you're stuck and out of water, a timer will start, just so you're not soft locked. So this will kill me, and now I'll hold reverse. And I can just go through the wall now that I set this checkpoint. Which is cool, but what does this accomplish? As it turns out, there is a load zone right out of bounds. And it is a dev exit. It brings us to the very end of the level, skipping the tutorial and going through the sewers. So yeah, I guess the developers put this here to skip the level for themselves, but still had the load zone there, but placed it out of bounds. So we found a way to get there and skip the level, saving like 2 minutes, which is insane. So that's the end of Race with the Rats Part 1. Now we will be doing Race with the Rats Part 2. So not only can the Jammy Dodger drive, it also has different stations on it, which will have one niche use later, but for now we will be using the crayon crossbow as it's intended. So I will be shooting down boxes, and then the level will begin in earnest, which Newts will be explaining.
Yes, so we will be chased down by Fatberry, Lady Killer, and Thimble-Nosed Ted, the other 3 henchrats that the Toad has. So Fatberry comes out first, and he's quite difficult to hit for this first part, but once we get to the barrel where there's a bit of a bottleneck, then he goes down pretty easily. For this next wave, there actually is a bit of a way to take them, like, you can skip a wave by taking them down very quickly, like as soon as they spawn, just start hitting them, but it's very difficult, and there's a 14 frame window for doing so. And so we won't be doing that this time. Or probably ever, since it's basically TAS only. But yeah, for Wave 2, Lady Killer joined Fatberry, and now for Wave 3, Thimble-Nosed Ted joins the other 2. And this is the easiest wave for the most part because they don't have very many varied paths. It just takes quite a few hits to get them down. And then there's Spike and Whitey. Whitey is pretty easy to take down first because he's just right there and he's going pretty straightforward. So then all it's left is Spike, and he's a bit of a struggle, but Kuro handles it pretty effectively, and now the level ends.
So even though we pummeled the henchrats with crayons, we are still caught by them because we crashed into their dock. So coming up will be Escape the Lair. It is going to be a very big room, and since we are adept at descent, we can cut through much of the level. So a lot of what I'll be doing is making sure I don't hit cutscenes, and just skipping what we're intended to be playing. So I'll dismount here onto this bridge and make another large leap onto a climbable wall. So this skips a lot of cutscenes and other things we were supposed to do in this level. So once I get on this elevator, afterwards will be the rope swing section. On the third one, we'll be taking a bit of an unorthodox shortcut. So on the third, I will be mashing jump, and I will be able to clip through the floor like that. So long as Roddy's body is touching the ground, it counts as him being grounded, so we're allowed to walk like that and jump up. The rest of this section is pretty straightforward, just avoiding cutscenes and getting to the end, where we'll open up a vent and have to play a little mashing minigame to open a door, which will conclude escape the layer. However, that is not the end of this level. There's a second half called Follow That Girl. In Follow That Girl, Roddy is chasing down Rita, who is escaping on her Jammy Dodger, and honestly, like, I can't believe this Roddy slander. I mean, who would want to get away from Roddy St. James, right? Like, he's just incredible, and so because of that, I will be wasting a little bit of time performing a visual glitch. You'll notice coming up at the end of this vent, I will be doing a quick pause, and then I will promptly die. So, I think I got it. Yeah, so now Roddy's disembodied torso will be on screen for the remainder of the level. This serves no purpose other than just having him on screen. So what happened, this image of Roddy appears whenever you pause the game, and I paused right as a checkpoint was being set, so it saves the image, so when we respawn, it will still be there. But if 3 Roddys weren't enough, we can do better. Now there are 4 Roddys on the screen, 3 of them being the same picture in different sizes, and the Roddy in game. So the thing on the bottom is an indicator telling us how far the Jammy Dodger is. It won't matter. If it ever reaches the end, then we lose, but that's not going to happen. On this straightaway is called Hydration Break. The most optimal thing to do is hold forward, so you can just take a swig of water. Here I could go for a wall ride on the brick wall, but it's a bit risky, so I'm going to be taking a safer path here by going wide. I'll be playing another mashing minigame, so it's either A, B, or X you have to press, but it's random, so we just have to react to it. There we go. So now we have to avoid the hench rats, and aiding us in this are propeller points, these orbs you've seen, which Newts will explain in a bit more detail.
So propeller points are a way for Roddy to fly in the air, and as you'll see, the orange and yellow propeller points, the yellow which you would have seen right at the beginning of Escape the Lair, send Roddy vertically. The orange one is slower while the yellow one is faster. The blue and purple propeller points will send Roddy horizontally. The blue ones we usually try to avoid because they can be skipped with double jumps. Their hitboxes are kind of large though, so it can be difficult to avoid them. And the purple ones are faster. Up next we have the Whirlpool of Garbage, which we have to just wait for because the cycle usually doesn't line up too well. We usually have to wait at least 5 seconds each time we get here before we are able to continue. But that was one of the lesser cycles, sadly, but oh well. The next part, we will be doing a cutscene skip where Kuro will be jumping to this dog and then go as far as possible until he can hit the cement again, where he will be skipping a cutscene with Whitey. And then he exits with another mashing minigame to more propellers. And from here on forward, it's about the same deal. So if there are any donations or announcements that need to be made, then there can be a couple that can be filled in here.
Yeah, so with the donation that we got a few minutes ago, we are $10 away from the Axe Battler incentive. So, yeah, get some donations in and let's get that met during this run.
For sure. So another thing you'll be seeing that Roddy has been taking is zip lines. So there is a sweet spot to them. If Newts, you want to explain that more, since you've dealt with that a lot more.
Yeah, so in the tasks, which I have been making most of my discoveries, there is a small spot on the zip line where whenever Roddy grabs on, he will actually accelerate the further down that he grabs onto it, as you'll see coming up in a couple seconds. And the sweet spot is basically the part where we touch it as soon as we can without actually losing time to double jumping to the furthest spot as Kuro did. There's actually quite a bit closer spot that goes a little bit faster than normal, but otherwise,
Yeah, it's a lot of it is a cost benefit thing because some zip lines you can just go at warp speed, but it takes so long to actually jump to get to the sweet spot that it actually loses more time. So it is an optimization problem, which Newt has done a lot for when making the tasks for this game.
yep. And so this finishes the level. Roddy will be jumping from this bridge back to the Jamie Dodger as he has to avoid the hench rats. And then we go back to Piccadilly Square for the second out of fifth time. And this time we'll be meeting up with Charlie Wu, who is having a bit of a scuffle with a customer who doesn't want to pay 40 quid for a piece of scrap. And so we'll be talking to Charlie Wu, and he says that because we have a boat, we are the chosen ones to help an orphanage from, or we're going to save them from being drowned. And so this will be the second Jamie Dodger level. The Jamie Dodger, as you've seen in Race of the Rats Part 1 and 2, is quite different. And since we didn't have the time to explain the actual controls and everything of the Jamie Dodger, we're going to do that right here, since for right now, there isn't a level skip on this level, even though we know that there is a developer skip. So, the controls are A to accelerate, analog stick to move, Y to brake, and there are a couple other buttons that have to do with weapons as well as some other quirks of the boat that Kuro will be explaining later on, as well as the most important button of them all, the L trigger, which, as you'll be seeing quite a bit, allows the boat to jump. And the thing with jumping is that once the Jamie Dodger lands, it will be submerged in the water slightly, but then because of its buoyancy, it will have upward momentum. And because of that, it can also carry some forward momentum from the buoyancy. And then that can be chained for something that we call dolphin dives, where the Jamie Dodger lands bow first and keeps diving. Something you also notice is that it's also quite hard to do damage control with the Jamie Dodger because it's quite fun to deal with all the collision, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But first, the most important part about keeping speed is insta-boosting, which, as we've seen a couple times, where the boat does not actually go fully in the water, it'll actually accelerate immediately instead of going down first. And this is because we jump as soon as the Jamie Dodger lands, because there is a 30 frame cooldown, or 1 second, because the game runs at 30 frames per second, where the L trigger cannot be pressed again. So with that, since jumping lasts usually more than a second, we can take advantage of that and then use insta-boosting in a variety of ways. There are several different types, as well as like several different situations that you can use the insta-boost, but it's quite complicated, and so that is why I will be releasing guides for that next year. I'll be releasing level guides for each and every level in very high detail down to the input. So, if you want to follow more on that, we'll have some shoutouts after the end of the run so that you don't have to miss out on that. Any things you wanted to add, Kuro, before the end here?
Just that you've seen a lot of what we call Tony Hawk Pro Skater moments of where I'll just like get caught on collision and then just completely spin out. It's very annoying when that happens, especially during PB attempts, but
Yeah, there was a nice 180 ollie you did
unfortunately.
over there at the beginning of the second part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a lot of points
Alrighty,
off
so now we're coming to the end of a good
that.
deed. So we never actually saw any orphans at all, but we supposedly saved them by pulling the drain plug at the first half of the level. And so, yeah, we did it. And so the next level will be Arachne's Revenge, where Roddy will be talking to Socket Set again, and then going down where we were at Jar of Flies, going down a bit deeper this time into the lair of some spiders. And I'll let Kyo explain the level as he has some good talking points to cover.
Yeah, so like Newt said, it's going to be the same level as Jar of Flies, at least just in terms of like where we start and where we go. So unlike Jar of Flies, there is no invisible wall or breakable pipe. So we don't have to do Jar of Flies skip again. We can just jump on the pipe and proceed. But yeah, so instead of collecting a jar of flies like we're told to, we exterminate some spiders for some reason. This level has a boss whose name is Arachne, who the game describes as an erotic and sexy Brazilian spider. She is an OC. She was made specifically for this game and did not appear in the movie. So yeah, this is gonna be, since she is the first boss battle, this is gonna be the first time we're actually using combat. You've seen us use attacks for death cancels and attack jumps, but now we're using those attacks for their intended purposes. So we get dropped down by this welcome mat and have to go on the elevator, which I'll describe the combat. So first we have Roddy's basic 3-hit combo. It's big sweeping slashes, very reminiscent of Sora Kingdom Hearts. It has, because it sweeps, it has good range, but it's pretty slow overall, so we won't be using it. We'll be using the more powerful hit into spin attack. This deals a total of 4 damage, which is the most DPS we can put up at once. However, there's a lot of end lag at the end, so we'll be mixing in the fencing combos. They're much faster, but they do have less range because Roddy just stabs instead of doing the sweeping moves, but it is a lot faster, so we'll be doing that for Arachne, who Newts will describe.
Yes, so as Kyo explained, Arachne is quite angry, as well as hungry, for Roddy as he had injured her babies. So, we're going to be fighting her in an interesting way. We are going to use her motherly instincts against her and throw her eggs at her. And so she'll be returning them to the web tables, as they're called, but we'll just call them egg sacs. And there are 2 ways that you can actually one-cycle the boss, which is quite difficult. You can either get in front of her directly and then, block her from moving to her next point, or you can hit her right as she's transitioning to her egg laying or putting down the egg animation. But we didn't get either of those, so we just beat her normally, and that's the end of Arachne's Revenge. So I'll have Kuro take over after we meet again with Charlie Wu.
Yeah, so we go to him to get the mission for running the gauntlet, which is the longest level in the game. It takes like 11 minutes to beat, and that's like the most optimal we can be. But we can actually skip the level. It's a bit complex, so I'll try and explain as briefly as I can. So this game has a very linear story progression. In fact, the developers implemented indiscriminate level progression as it does not actually check what level you beat, it just knows to move to the next one, like a train on rails. Another thing the game likes to do is set checkpoints at the beginning of each level, so if you die, it will send you back to the beginning. This level doesn't, so we're going to be doing something a bit weird. We're going to play this salvaging minigame. You'll see I lost control of the boat, so I will cancel the minigame, switch stations, and this will give me back control of the boat. So if I'm in the air as this game finishes, I die. But wait, we didn't have a checkpoint at that level, so where does that send us? Deja vu, we are back in Piccadilly, right after Arachne's Revenge. So we talk to Charlie Wu, get the mission for running the gauntlet, but we did that already, so are we just repeating history? Well, for all intents and purposes, the game thinks we are still in running the gauntlet, at least from a story progression standpoint. So when we board the boat, the game is told to move to the next one. And since it thinks we are still in running the gauntlet, it will move to the level past running the gauntlet, which will skip the level. So that saves like 10, 11 minutes, which is insane. Now we have a poorly justified capture the flag minigame. I'll try not to miss shots while Newt's explaining what's happening.
Yep, so now it's England versus Germany. In the events and running the gauntlet, we run into quite a few football fans, and that's literally all that this is about. So, what we're doing is we're positioning our mousetrap catapult so that we take down the central tower. And from there, we shoot down their flags. That's basically about it, but the AI can sometimes target us, and that can destroy our game plan as we need the mousetrap catapult for at least one of the flag shots. But Kuro gets the first one, so we're all good from there, even if they hit us back. And so, after capturing the last flag, after the AI does some stupid stuff for no reason, the level is over. And now we move on to French Frog Legs, where after the events of running the Gauntlet and Castle Siege, Roddy and Rita are pursued by Lifrog and his hench frogs. And so, after getting the shot here, which can be difficult, so it's understandable, now we move on to the next level.
Yeah, we just rerouted how we did that castle siege, so I still don't have the muscle memory down to hit all the flags. So now we're in French Frog Legs. We are captured by the Toad's cousin, Le Frog. So the first 3 rooms are Rita, and then we fight the frog with Roddy. This really shows off Rita's movement capabilities, so as this is happening, Rujasu, if you have any donations or announcements, feel free.
Hey, so reminder, Speed Stuff for Charity is a speedrun marathon team dedicated to annually raising money for charities. We have raised over $10,000 in our 8 years doing marathons, and we plan to continue for as long as there's interest. We've previously benefited St. Jude's, Doctors Without Borders, Equality Texas, and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And today we have raised over $1,000 for lead in this marathon, so let's keep it up.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Let's keep it up. Yeah, this is the last room before the boss battle. So we'll be using instant grapples, so I'll slide off the edge and thus skip the animation. Accidentally target onto the wrong grapple point.
Yeah, so Lifrog is the most difficult of the bosses, as he is quite mobile and does a lot of different things. And so his boss, like the whole boss deal is that we have to progress him by, or let me start over. So instead of being based on health, his phases are based on how many hits you get in. So every 6 hits, he will transition to the next phase. So recently we figured out by getting him to his second phase as quick as possible, we can actually save quite a bit of time. And so that went over quite well, actually, despite the first phase. But yeah, so now we get captured by Spike and Whitey despite all of our efforts to evade the Toads, you know, henchmen. And so now the Toad is going to have his big moment, but it is going to be entirely ruined by Roddy and Rita as they are going to L plus ratio him by telling him his plan, which he thinks was so brilliant but was actually quite obvious, how he was going to flood the Retropolis with, at halftime when everybody goes to the bathroom. And so, in his fit of rage, he kicks everybody off the platform except for Roddy, and now we are taking down the terminals as the Toad is seeing red and not realizing that he's destroying his own equipment. And so as we have the last one destroyed, we move on to the second part, which Kuro will explain.
Yep, so now that that's over, we do our final confrontation against the Henchrats, Fat Barry, Timber-Nosed Ted, and Lady Killer. So we fight them one at a time. Each of them has a weakness in this room. We must exploit that before they become vulnerable to being hit. So for Fat Barry, we go to this cold shower. This will make him trip and fall, which will let us hit him. So just like that, and now we can wail on him. This takes 2 cycles. It is technically possible to do it in 1, but it is extremely difficult just because of Rita's ability to do combat. So now for the next 2, we'll be using a thing called effect stacking. So I'm going to use the camera flash to stun him once, and as he's hit by the first one, I activate another camera flash. So once this cycle ends, he will immediately get hit by the second camera flash, allowing me to hit him instantly again. Same thing can be done with Lady Killer. I use the vents to knock off his toupee. So I wait a bit and now wail on him as he's readjusting his hair. So the second vent should knock off his hair once more. And that is all the Henchrats. Now we come to Roddy's final section. If it hasn't been said already, this is the final level of the game.
Yep, as Kuro said, this is the final obstacle course that Roddy will be taking. So we say our goodbye to Roddy as he goes along this climbable wall and then faces many obstacles that are mostly of certain death. The steam can push us into the gashes and the vents. The crushing door can squish us instantly, which is certain death. The electrical wall can kill us immediately, and there is quite a bit more danger with just having to maneuver around this room. But there is one thing that isn't certain death, and that's the span, which just doesn't have any sort of collision at all, so we just run straight through it, and so that ends Roddy's screen time for his playtime. And now we move on to the final part of the game.
Yep, so right now we are draining the Toad's liquid nitrogen supply, so you've seen we have to do this 3 times. So the process is go to his computer, flip a switch like so, then we grapple up, press a button, and I will fall off an instant grapple to pull the latch. So we do this one more time, and then we will come to the final boss battle. I say that in quotes. Unlike the Henchrats, we don't fight him directly. He will be throwing liquid nitrogen flasks at us, and we have to knock it out of his hands and then knock the platforms out from under him. We need to do this 6 times, and then that will be time when the screen turns black, which I will call. So so we use the grappling hook to knock out the liquid nitrogen flasks. You see me jumping before I do it. This is to activate instant grappling. So my grapple instantly gets over there. I don't have to wait for a startup animation. So now we are at the final plank, and time is coming up real soon. And time.
Alright, so the Toad's plans have been stopped cold, and there is no more threat of a rat genocide for Retropolis. And so, Roddy and Rita save the day. and after that, they just go on their trip through the drains of Europe as planned, and that is the end of the game. It has been quite the adventure.
Yeah, so at this final cutscene here, it's the end with a question mark. It should just be a period, because, I mean, there was no continuation with Flushed Away, but who knows? Maybe it will come back at some point. But yeah,
Maybe.
that was the run. I don't have too much to say after that, besides, Flushed Away is just a really cool speed game. It's surprising I did this game first, like, entirely ironically and for the memes, but here I am, still a year and a half later. Yeah, to borderline obsession between Newts and I for this game. But yeah, if you want to keep up, feel free to join the Flushed Away Discord. We'll teach you the route if you want. Or you can just hang out with us because we are cool. Anything you want to say, Newts?
Yeah, shoutouts to the Flushed Away community, because for the almost 5 years that I've been running this game, it has just been a joy through and through. Even through all of the hardships with how difficult the game can be to run sometimes.
Yeah, at a high level, it's very tough, especially for PB attempts, but it's a pretty good game for beginners as well. It's just optimizing it to, like, as much as possible is a grind.
So yeah, thank you for having us, and I'll see y'all later.
Yeah, thank you so much. Continue supporting Speed Stuff for charity, and go lead. If I haven't been transitioned out yet, we can look at this image of Roddy all wet. And yeah, so whenever we pick that.